Well, joining us now, the senior BJP leader, Swapan Dasgupta. Thanks very much, Mr. Dasgupta, for being with us. Now, the key part of what George Soros said, the Adani controversy will, and I quote, significantly weaken Modi's stranglehold on India's federal government and open the door to push for much-needed institutional reforms. I may be naive, but I expect a democratic revival in India. How would you respond to that? He expects this to result in some profound change in our democracy on the basis of this controversy with the Adanis.
Well, Vishnu, the first thing we must notice that George Soros is not a mere political analyst. Had a political analyst written this, you could have said, he may be right, he may be wrong, etc. But there is a baggage which George Soros carries. And George Soros is a person who uses his economic clout, who uses economic leverage to destabilize, to manipulate regimes, to have manipulate politics. He's done that before. He's got a record of doing it in the United Kingdom. He's got a record in Hungary, his home, the country where he was born in, where he's almost a persona non grata, where there's a sort of a national campaign against him. And he's now trying to do this in India. Now, why he's singled out India for such exceptional attention is a matter which he can answer. But the mere fact is that today George Soros announced two things. One is that what happened as far as the Hindenburg report was not a pure innocent, analysis of a corporate body which may have been guilty of certain things. It was slightly more than that. It was linked very much to the politics of India and what the implications of that would be on India. In other words, what they expected, I think that's the subtext of it, is that it would lead to a profound economic destabilization of India, which in turn would have a cascading effect and have a political impact which would destabilize the Modi regime, weaken him, and perhaps strengthen some other people. Who it's going to strengthen is a matter of conjecture.
So Swapan, let me ask you this. The other key question is that Soros says of Prime Minister Modi, he says the Prime Minister has to answer questions from foreign investors and Parliament on allegations of fraud and stock manipulation against Adani Group companies. Now, our opposition says this as well, but the question does remain, should the Prime Minister not personally respond directly to the allegations?
No. I don't think so. I don't think the Prime Minister should respond to what Mr. George Soros is going to say. The Prime Minister may or may not respond to what parliamentarians say, but certainly what Mr. Soros says is not worthy of attention. What I think is very important is that there are certain institutions in India which should respond, which should actually take up the matter of how the whole Adani issue has played out. And I think SEBI is looking into it, RBI is looking into it, and I think the Supreme Court is also seized of the matter. So there are various institutions in India which are looking into this. Now, all of them are looking into it. Why? For the reason because they feel that anything important like this, which could have a impact on ordinary investors, on the confidence of India as a thing, needs attention. Okay. In other words, their intention is to how do we improve the system? If there are weaknesses in the system, how do we improve it? And how do we plug loopholes? The intention of Mr. Soros is not that. It is how do I use this to destabilize the country?
Let's talk a little bit more about that.
I don't like Mr. Modi. He says he doesn't like Mr. Modi, so he would like to use this for that purpose.
So several BJP leaders have said that there's a foreign conspiracy. Going beyond Soros. One that is targeting us. I think Mr. Javadekar, in fact, mentioned this as well. I think Smriti Irani alluded to that as well. But there's this BBC controversy now, Soros as well. Earlier on, there was Greta Thunberg, Hindenburg now. How would you respond to those who say that, it's far-fetched to sort of link all of these and say that they've all come together and are conspiring against India?
Well, I would look upon all these different expressions of hatred towards Mr. Modi in a slightly different way. I think there is an ecosystem at work which finds Mr. Modi's politics absolutely repugnant. Now, that they may find it repugnant, they may dislike it, but the fact is Mr. Modi is an elected representative of India. He's won 2 elections. He is popular still in this country. And therefore, to go against the wishes, you can say, I don't like Mr. Modi, fair enough. There are lots of people in India who say that. That's not the issue. The issue is, why do you want to interfere in the sovereign right of a people to choose its own government? And I think this, in some senses, actually infringes on the sovereignty of India. And I think that sovereignty of India is under somewhat attack. And I think there is a belief in some quarters that if you hit India hard enough, India will somehow wilt. And I think that's the assumption on which some of these things are made. And as far as the BBC is concerned, there is as I said, there is an ecosystem at work. And I think these are the different expressions of that ecosystem. I think George Soros represents the most extreme end of it, and the BBC or some other people might the more sort of benign part of it.